Hi everyone. I am really happy to present a dear friend and my teacher of the Bach Flower Remedies, Lynn Macwhinnie, on our channel tonight. And Lynn has been using the Bach flowers for over 40 years, and she's been teaching the Bach Flower Remedies, the practitioner program, as well as the teacher training program. In fact, I learned the level 3 with her, and I did my level 1 teacher training with her, and that's how I became a teacher of the Bach Flower Remedies. She's a delightful person. It's so amazing to be in her class, and I felt that it would be wonderful for all of us to know right from Lynn. So I would like everybody to welcome Lynn on our channel tonight. Hey Lynn, it's so very nice to see
you. Hi, thank you. Thank you for that nice introduction. Good to see you.
Yeah, we were supposed to be meeting this year, but unfortunately that virus happened, and it just got postponed to next year.
Yeah, very disappointing.
It will happen.
It will happen. Yeah, we want you out there teaching the next level 2s.
So Lynn, a lot of the people on our channel will be wondering what the Bach Flower Remedies are all about. So would you like to just start by telling us a little bit about the Bach flowers?
Well, the Bach Flower Remedies are a very simple system that was developed by and discovered by Dr. Edward Bach back in the 1930s. He was a bacteriologist, a homeopath, and a surgeon. And he felt there had to be something simple in nature that would actually address the emotions that somebody is going through, as he realized that even, if he had 2 patients with the same physical condition, perhaps each person broken a leg, that their emotional response to that would be quite different. And therefore, their healing would be different depending on their emotional reaction. So if somebody was very impatient, for example, they may get in the way of their own healing that way. Or if somebody was very apathetic, they may also get in the way of their own healing. So he just set out, he actually gave up everything, and he set out to find what we know as the 38 Bach Flower Remedies. And just a lot of people, when they hear flowers, they think, oh, it must be aromatherapy. But actually, no, it's not. They're quite different. They come in tiny little bottles like this, and they're drops that you take. You dilute and you take them. Very simple system. That's why I like it. It's simple, and you can use it with any other modality, whether it is complementary therapies, or it's also, of course, allopathic medicine, traditional medicine in the sense of surgery and so on. So they're great, absolutely wonderful. So I'm a convert.
Yeah, you've been converted for 40 years now. So can you tell us a little bit about your story? How did the Bach flowers enter your life? What brought you to them?
Oh, well, I was working in publishing in San Francisco, and a manuscript landed on my desk, and it was about the Bach Flower Remedies. And I immediately, when I read it, I just got really excited. I thought, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the missing link. This is what we need in health and healing. And it was just, I was so excited. And I happened to be coming back to England on a business trip, and went to the Bach Centre, which is in this tiny village in Oxfordshire called Brightwell-cum-Sotwell. And I went there and I bought my first set of remedies that were tiny 5 ml bottles, and Heal Thyself, which was Dr. Bach's main book really about the remedies, and you can actually download that for free from the Bach Centre website. And yes, Heal Thyself, 12 Healers are my set of remedies. And I went back to San Francisco and I started using them on my colleagues at work. And they started coming to my desk, I'm feeling a bit sad today, or I'm feeling angry, or I've got no motivation, and so on. I think, I think there's a remedy for that. And that's how I started.
Yeah, it was very similar for me also. I kind of stumbled upon a book of the Bach flowers at a friend's house, and I started reading it because I had nothing else to do. And she just walked into my room and said, "Oh, you're reading the Bach Flowers. I have the kit." And I said, "Oh, cool." So, I kind of put on the Harry Potter potions hat and started mixing up stuff. And I too gave it to a few of my friends, and some of them came back after 15 days to me and said, "Whatever it was you gave me, I want a bucket of it." and that's how I got involved. It's really strange how these remedies get into people's lives in such
Absolutely. And I think that's what's so wonderful about it. It seems to come out of left field sometimes, and it's not necessarily something you're looking for, and yet then it presents itself, and you just, the people who kept coming to you, amazed. And sometimes I don't even know why I'm still amazed. And after all this time, it's like, well, I should be going, yeah, well, of course, but I don't. I go, wow, really? So, it's great.
So since we're telling stories, Lynn, could you tell us a little bit about Dr. Bach himself? I mean, you've been to the center and you've been with them for 40 years, and I think you even knew Nora, who was Dr. Bach's assistant at one time. So could you tell us a bit of history, a little bit of gossip, if possible?
Well, to set the record straight, I didn't know Nora at all. I was fortunate enough to meet her on the occasion I went to the Bach Centre, and it was because I was so excited, and I walked into his little office, which is still there. People can visit. There's now a little museum upstairs as well, and it was just when I walked in there, I just felt, I could feel the presence of healing, really, and something wonderful that this man had done and left. But really, actually, I mean, Nora, in a way, was we have a lot to thank her for, because Dr. Bach, when he gave up everything, and he gave up his Harley Street practice in London and so on, and he sort of took off to explore in nature to find the remedies, and bearing in mind he had a very good reputation as a surgeon, and for his investigations into bacteriology. He developed vaccines for troops returning from the First World War who had severe issues, with stomach issues and so on. He was doing a lot of, really good work, but he just kept feeling that in what he was doing there was sort of something intrinsically harmful, and he wanted something that was purer and simpler, which he really felt he could find in nature. And it was actually Nora went with him. She was a radiographer, and she actually then decided, she was so believed in his work, she went with him really as support to help him in his discoveries, and to help him kind of put this whole thing together. And when he died in 1936, it was Nora and Victor Bullen, who was another one of his colleagues. They really carried on the work, and without them, I think that we could have lost the remedies. So I think it was quite remarkable. But I think the other thing about Dr. Bach too is that in about 1919, if I got my dates right, is that he was given 3 months to live, and he had cancer, and they just, they opened him up. They took a look. They said, "You've only got 3 months," But he was so determined, and he felt very strongly that if you've got a destiny and if you've got a purpose in life, then you get focused on that, which is what he did. That was important. It's like you're following your soul's purpose, really. And what was extraordinary then, he went on for like another 16 years or so. So that was quite amazing. So people often go, "Well, he died at 50," but he did what he'd set out to do, was to find this simple system in nature and make it available to anyone. And that was very important to him. And I mean, it's part of what the legacy really of the teaching is about. And, and it's now in over 40 countries, around the world, that people can learn about it. They can take it as far as they want. And whether they want to just do it for themselves and their family, or whether, like you, they want to become practitioners and then become teachers of the system as well. Because he just wanted to get it into the hands of everyone. So he would say, you know, if you feel fearful, you know, we would take mimulus, for example, and it's the same as if you feel hungry, you would go and pick a lettuce from the garden.
Right.
So it's, yeah, it is an amazing legacy. And as I say, without Nora, I think we wouldn't have been to reap the benefits of this for so many years.
Yeah, it was quite incredible, you know, when even I read his story that he had that cancer in his brain, and you know, there was an operation, and then he really waited until he had managed to get those 38 remedies together, and it was like, now my job is done, bye. And he died within a year of getting the 38 done, isn't it? Something like that.
Yes, he had lectures. Yes, he had lectures planned for the September, which actually, I think it was September the 26th, I think, if I remember rightly. And he died in the November.
Oh.
Yeah, his first public lectures, if you like, that were going to be presenting the whole system. So yeah, it was quite. Yeah, I think there is that thing, isn't it? It's like when your work's done, your work's done.
Work's done, and you can.
His body went through a great deal because, you know, he was highly intuitive, and he would manifest physical conditions, and he would literally be going out around the countryside to find the right, you know, remedy that would actually then sort of change the pattern of what was going on for him. And although we don't select the remedies on the basis of physical conditions, it's very much about what your thoughts and emotions are. I think with him, it was like he's manifesting all these as a way to be able to identify what was required. And then sometimes, you know, he could just touch a plant and his condition would immediately change. So it was highly, highly sensitive. And I think that also takes its toll. You know, I think we can't, none of us, I don't think, can, you know, well, maybe there are the few who are more enlightened than us, most of us are, is that to live with that such a fine vibration, if you like, and have to constantly be recalibrating, I think it takes its toll.
I guess.
But he was also very grounded, and he liked that there's a pub in the village called the Red Lion, which goes back to the 16th century, I think. And, you know, he liked to go down there and enjoy a Guinness and so on. So, you know.
You know, I always thought that maybe he had a bit of, you know, he was a little bit cuckoo as well. Because, you know, I was reading a little bit of his history, and when he finished his 38 remedies, and being a scientist and being a doctor, even though he was along with that, and I mean, that was a fantastic combination that he was intuitive and a scientist both together, and he had copious notes. And I heard that he just made a bonfire and burnt everything off.
Burnt everything, yeah, yeah.
I mean, I wonder what secrets were there in that. Maybe there was a 39th and a 40th remedy, and maybe it didn't fit into the simple system. And, you know,
yeah. I think I really feel quite strongly in a way that, you know, it's very hard, isn't it? Because after somebody dies, we know that now, you know, then people start digging around in their papers and they find this and that. And then they think that that changes everything with what their final work was. But actually, that's been their journey of exploration. And I think he really felt that journey of exploration didn't need to be detailed. He didn't want to detract from the simplicity of what the final system was. And I think that, you know, it's like part of what he was doing, you know, because he was, it feels to me from his writings that he was obviously interested in other religions and other philosophies and other approaches to healing. And I think he explored lots of different things. And there was quite a lot of that going on in London at that time anyway. You know, the people who were sort of coming through with more esoteric points of view, if you like. And I think he just didn't want to muddy the water. And that every time, if you add another layer of complexity to something, it's no longer simple.
Right.
And if you think how small, I mean, I've got a copy of his 12 Healers here. And it's like, you look at that and you can see how little he wrote about each remedy. And then you think all the books that are out there about the remedies now, including my own, you know, it's like, and I like, thank you, yes. But I think even when I was writing that, I was thinking, how can I? You know, because really he says it all in his little book. But of course it's about, everyone has a different experience of working with the remedies, and then of course want to share that. So eventually I gave in and shared.
Oh, I'm so glad you gave in. You know, Lynn has written this amazing book called, you know, Emotional Wisdom with the Bach Flower Remedies. And I think even she has written very little, really. Just a few paragraphs on each remedy, but it's so clear and so precise. And this book really is one of my most go-to books while I was studying. And even now, you know, whenever I travel, it's always in my luggage.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you. That's nice to hear. I think, it was about trying to honour the simplicity of the system. That's really what I wanted to do with that, because I think as human beings, we do make things very complicated sometimes, and we really don't need to. I think it's almost like our mind gets in the way too much, and it's like, no, just keep it simple. And I know when, you know, people have tried to link it to other sort of esoteric traditions, and you know, it's interesting, but does it keep the system simple? And in my view, no, it doesn't. And I think if we know enough about human nature and we listen to the person who comes and speaks to us about what's going on with them, we know. Well, actually, the client knows, really. Yeah. It's just that we have a different language for explaining what they're experiencing, but it's the same thing, because Dr. Bach has given us the system to do that.
And this is something that I really love about his system, that the client, the patient plays an equal role in deciding the remedies. You know, otherwise you feel so vulnerable. You're already not well, and the doctor on the other side of the desk, you know, he's saying all sorts of Latin. And I remember a friend of mine, he had he was working out, and he kind of hurt his back or something, and it was paining a lot. So while he was going back home, he passed a hospital and just decided, let me just check it, you know, get a little idea of what's going on. And then I get this terrified phone call from him, and he's saying, "Oh my God, Baba, I don't know what's happened to me." I said, "Okay, just cool down, relax. Tell me, what did the doctor tell you?" And all the doctor had said was the Latin name for a backache. And this guy was scared out of his pants, because it was such a long name. You know, I said, don't worry, just go home and put a hot water bottle and you'll be fine the next day. So the fact that Dr. Bach actually encouraged us to work with our clients and involve them in the choosing of the remedies is just such a complete, you know, tangent of the normal medical profession of any sort, really, whether it is homeopathy, whether it is allopathy, whether it is Ayurveda. You know, the doctor is kind of the king over there, and over here the doctor actually, the practitioner actually shares the power with the client, which must feel so empowering, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think as part, I think of the process, isn't it, of people being able to own their own healing, really, rather than being passive recipients of a system and not engaging with it. And I think that in itself becomes very empowering. And it means, you know, when somebody, you know, wants to know about the remedies, all they've got to do is just, you know, look at the simple descriptions and go, oh yes, that sounds like me. Yeah. Why don't I try that? You know, there's no contraindications. There's no constituent parts of the flower in there. It's just the energy medicine or energy of that particular flower suspended, if you like, in brandy. And people go, oh, it's the brandy that does it. It's like, well, no, you could just take 2 drops of that in a large glass of water and just sip. And they'll know the difference. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's an important part of the process, really, and I think that's why so many people are attracted to, you know, working with the system, because it does enable people genuinely, and it doesn't have to be, you know, once a week for the next, you know, year. It can, it is just, okay, we'll have a mix. It will last you 2 to 3 weeks on your 4 drops 4 times a day. And then after that, see how you feel.
Right.
Because it will change, because other emotions will come up. And then, of course, you tweak the mix, or you go, actually, no, I feel okay. So I think I'm going to leave it there for now. So
I have really never had a fourth or a fifth consult. I think the longest I've consulted someone is 5 times, and by the 6th time they know the remedy. So it's always just a phone call. Baba, do you think this is it? And I tell them, do you think it is it? And they say, yeah. And I said, that's it then. You own it. Like, I love the word you say, you own your healing, and it's so empowering to do that. So that is the other aspect of the system I completely love, that there is no dependency anymore on the practitioner. The client in a little while kind of learns the system, and off they go on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree with you on that. I think it's we don't need to keep our clients.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that, really. Like I trained as a psychotherapist and as a counselor and as a leadership coach. I did a lot of work with all of that. And yet all the time I would find, even with any of those clients, I'd be sitting there thinking, yeah, I think there's a Bach flower you might like to go and investigate. And, and because my kind of contract was more about those therapies or coaching, it wasn't about the Bach flowers, I wouldn't actually dispense any remedies at all, but I could certainly point them in the direction of them. And they'd go off and do their own investigations and sort out a mix for themselves. And it was always amazing to me how they moved so much more easily through the process. And I can remember my colleagues used to be, it's like, well, when I was working for one agency, it was like, well, how come your clients, they seem to kind of just get it together really quickly. And I said, well, it's the Bach Flower Remedy. I felt it was the Bach Flower Remedies. That's not to underestimate that listening to a client and being present with them and really holding the space with them, I think is hugely valuable. And of course, most people don't get that when they go to see a doctor these days. They just don't have the time. And I think there is that potency, if you like, in that dynamic. But then to be able to introduce them to a tool that is so readily accessible to them and that they can do for themselves. I just think, I almost feel it's almost miraculous, really, when I hear some of the things that have happened to people over the years. So, and I'm sure you've been finding that with your work.
That brings me to my next question. What is the most miraculous Bach flower story you have?
Oh dear. Well, in a way, they're all miracles for the person involved, aren't they?
I think still, the one with special effects. Of course, but the one with special effects, the one that is the clincher.
Oh gosh. You really put me on the spot, because quite honestly, now you've asked me that, I can't think of a single one. I think that one of the stories actually I heard, which I really liked, and it was someone who was, I really liked it. It was somebody who was in a job they really didn't like, and they were given 3 remedies. They were feeling very resigned to it, in a wild rose state. And wild rose can be very, that sort of apathetic, and there's no real joy in them, if you like. It's almost living in the grey zone. And he was like that about his job. And he thought, he just had another couple of decades in the job, and then he could retire, which is just, he was very resentful as well, which was willow. We often think about willow like the weeping willow. It's actually a different type of willow that's used for the Bach Flower Remedy, but that image, I think, is quite a good one. It's the poor me. And he was also given wild oat, which wild oat we often call the destiny remedy. And so he had a mix of those 3, and I think within a month he had found another job that in another area of his expertise, and it just took off for him. So, and he was completely skeptical. And that was on one mix. And the mix is only, I've got some bottles here, it's only like a 30 ml mix that you make up. So you think just that little bottle. And it completely changed his life. And much happier man, you know, and I think it's stories like that, you know, that when I hear those from students or clients and so on, I'm just, I'm always in awe of how they can transform people, and their lives. But I think we don't always, you know, notice. I think that's the trouble for many of us about what's going on for us ourselves. And there's always that thing is, you know, sort of physician, heal thyself. And I think it's the same for anyone who's in the kind of healing professions in the broadest context of it. And, you know, I don't know if you find this, is that sometimes you don't always pay enough attention to what's going on with you because you're so busy, you know, doing what you do. And I know, you know, I've had my own experiences of being caught short on that. And it's, the remedies are always there, get me through all kinds of things.
You know, I think my most, I mean, I have quite a few stories about the Batliwala.
Tell us your stories, come on.
So the one that I found really, really cool was the one that didn't work, so to speak.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was this guy who had come, complete skeptic, and you know, he said, I have this issue and that issue, and thank God for you, Lynn. You know, you had told us that, you know, write it out. Don't just you know, don't just give something. Just write out whatever they say so that you have it on record, and you know, you can refer to it when they come back. So I had written it out, and so I gave him a mix. I really don't even remember what the mix was anymore. And I meet him after a few weeks, and I just asked him, so how is it for you? How is it going for you? Did you take the remedies? He said, yeah, but you know, they didn't work. Nothing really happened. And I pulled out my phone and I, you know, checked his what I had given him. And so I asked him, so how is your stomachache or headache, whatever that was that he had been having? And his eyes just, you know, kind of became big and said, oh my God, I don't even realize when it went away. He had forgotten he had that problem. And that was when I thought, oh my, you know, these remedies, they really remove the issue from the very root so much so that people even forget that they had the issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, yeah.
That was like really, really cool.
Absolutely. And I think that's why sometimes when people say, well, it doesn't seem to have worked, you say, well, have you noticed anything, you know, if they're married, have you noticed if your husband or wife has said anything to you, you know, has something changed for you? And they go, well, they've said I'm less irritable. Okay. Well, you know, because you were in Patians. So I think sometimes we need that external point of reference sometimes to remind us, actually, yes, you're not where you were. But tell us some other stories.
Well, there is a friend of mine who has been practicing with the Bach Flower Remedies now for more than 20 years. And he actually came and did the level 1 course with me because he never learnt about them, you know, formally. Yeah. And he had some amazing stuff to tell me. He said that there was one friend of his who in front of his eyes had got a heart attack. And, you know, he's clutching his chest and he'd fallen like on the floor. And this guy just took some rescue remedy and applied it on his chest and put a few drops in his mouth. And of course, they called the ambulance and the doctors and all that. And when they got into the hospital, the doctor who examined him said he had a massive, massive heart attack, but there was absolutely no damage to his heart.
Wow. Oh, that's
and
amazing.
it was like it made my hair stand, you know.
Yeah.
That just a few drops of this, and the doctor said it is just a medical impossibility. What has happened? It cannot be explained. What did you guys do? Do you pray or something? And we say, yeah, we pray and we do some other stuff as well.
Yeah. And I think sometimes when there are those dramatic things, because, you know, like Dr. Bach had that with the rescue mix, and because the rescue remedy or crisis formula, Yes, I think it's just called Five Flower.
Flower,
Because there's
yeah.
different manufacturers have got different brands, but they're all the same. They've all got the 5 flowers in. And Dr. Batch used his rescue on a fisherman when he was living in Cromer, and the man, you know, gone overboard and everything else, and was hauled onto the beach, and they, you know, thought he was dead. And Dr. Batch happened to be walking by, and he gave him some of the rescue. And next thing, the man sat up and said, "Oh, he wanted a cigarette." So, yeah, I think
Quite dramatic, and at the same time they are quite subtle. You know, it's quite interesting how you know, for some people it's such a gradual
yes,
transition, and for the others it is, you know,
yes,
like
yeah.
2 drops and they are a different person.
Yeah, and I think that in a way, I mean, it's wonderful, and yet at the same time, I think it's also creates one little difficulty, is that when people say, well, how long will it take to work? And of course, we can't say, because we don't know, you know, how long's a piece of string. And I think that because we're working on such a subtle level, as you've said before, you know, people don't always notice it either, notice those changes. And it is making people having to be a little bit more self-aware of those subtle changes. You know, do they notice they're dreaming more? Do they notice that actually they've got a bit more of a spring in their step when they're going out to do what they want to do, or they're not getting sort of road rage anymore, and so on. You know, that there are these different kind of little signs, and people have got to pay attention to that in a way, so that they are, so that they're, again, it's that bit taking responsibility for the healing process. But it is subtle, and I think we have to be kind of careful too, not to overstate the value, because I'm certainly not saying use these remedies and don't use anything else.
Absolutely.
I think, you know, it's very much about how do you create, or say, a sort of an integrative and holistic model of healthcare for yourself. And so if you are, for example, going into hospital because you've got to have surgery and you feel frightened, then take some of the Bach Flower Remedies, because that will help to address your fear. And if you're, you know, and you take the remedies pre and post surgery, it will help your recovery. So because we know that if our emotions and our thoughts get churned up, we start to feel unwell. And they certainly demonstrated that, didn't they, with all the investigations into stress, when they started to realize stress wasn't some sort of modern sort of pretend condition, that stress actually existed, and it had direct links to physical problems like IBS, for example, or persistent headaches and so on. Well, if we address the how you feel about your particular situation, and everyone's going to be different, and we give you remedies for that, what you may notice is that those physical conditions may change. And they may also require more, you know, interventions, you know, whether you have acupuncture or you have massage, or you know, you see your GP or physiotherapist or something. It's because we can't just always expect it to be a magic wand. I think that's the key thing, really. I think there's two, it is that bit of I think more than anything is learning enough about ourselves to know what's going on with us, so we can then start to sort of change things and take responsibility. And I think, you know, as we talked about earlier, lots of people haven't taken responsibility for their health. You know, they place it in the hands of someone else. And I think that's put huge pressure on a lot of medical practitioners, because, you know, they go in and they go, oh, okay, fix me. Yeah. Got nothing to do with me. It's your job. You've got to fix me. It's like, well, actually, no. You've got to fix yourself. I can be a facilitator of that process.
Right.
And I think that's really, you know, and if we work together with allopathic medicine and complementary medicines and so on, and, you know, you can integrate Bach into any of those or use it as a standalone system, you know, depending on the circumstances, then you're going to do okay. And there was a surgeon who had actually come on one of my courses, and he'd been working out that he was orthopedic surgeon, and he would give some of his patients Star of Bethlehem, and some of them he wouldn't, because Star of Bethlehem will heal trauma no matter how old it is. And so what he noticed was those who had Star of Bethlehem pre and post operatively actually had a more profound recovery than those who didn't. So when I hear those kind of things from people who are working out there in the medical field and who are doing their own, if you like, unofficial research in a sense, or dentists have, using the rescue remedy, the crisis formula. They've been doing that. They notice their patients are calmer. So other studies have been done on things like depression. It was a doctor and researcher in South Korea who did a study on that using the flower remedies. So there are studies going on in the world, but of course, that's it's not the same as the pharmaceutical industry when it comes to kind of promoting these things.
Yeah.
Everything has its place, though. So I think that's the thing. And I would never, although I know that the batch system is a system in its own right, I would never say to somebody that's all you have to live your life with. I think that becomes a bit too rock water, which is the batch flower that isn't a flower, and a bit too rigid. Yeah.